Chapter 52. Glass Subjugation 1. Lucy always lies down facing the direction where the stars are visible. Lying on the rooftop of Tris Hall and gazing up at the sky makes the twinkling starlit heavens seem to warmly press down upon her like a blanket. Heat and cold aren't significant variables for Lucy, who is always layered with various protective magic spells. However, elements like sunlight, a clear expanse of sky, the occasional rustling of leaves, or the gentle babble of a stream in the distance are more important than one might think. Completely enclosed walls and ceilings are not ideal. This dislike extends even to Ophelia's Hall, despite its sunny rooms, expensive beds, and luxury bedding, because the view is obstructed. The maids have grown busier since a portion of Ophelia's Hall was demolished, but their unyielding hands that restrain Lucy haven't offered any concessions. Draped in her immaculately laundered uniform daily, her white hair flowing smoothly down her back as she wanders the academy, Lucy's movements are no different than those of the street cats. One never ceases to learn, Lucy. Sylvania's will must have been the same. Single quote. The elder. The fragrance of rosemary lingers in the witch's hat forcibly placed upon her by the ancient magician Gluck, his wrinkled hands full of folds. If she sniffs her sleeve, the same scent remains. The maid must have washed it while Lucy slept. The day Gluck passed away, a dreary, drizzly day, unexpectedly surfaces in her memory. Clutching his hat, she sat at his humble cabin, flickering like a distant star beyond the sky, striking down anyone who dared disturb the ashes of the great sorcerer Gluck. Anyone trying to meddle with him ended up broken. Compared to that time, has she become more benign? Not necessarily healthier, and if anything, the correct term would likely be, more languid. Without the maids, there's nobody left to admonish Lucy. It's not to say life is dull. Akan Island may be small, but it harbors picturesque landscapes, delectable food, and more dramatic events than expected. While most things fail to pique Lucy's detached interest, her days are hardly monotonous. You may have innate talent and the blessings of stars, but they are no reason to cease learning, Lucy. Even if everyone at the academy falls short of your prowess, there is undoubtedly still more to learn. So always continue to study. Be humble and use your strength for the good of all. Single quote. And, guard against the solitude that will one day seep slowly into your life. Overwhelming strength will invariably bring painful loneliness. I'm sorry for leaving you alone, Lucy. Single quote. The nature of loneliness varies with each individual. For everyone, the chill blade of solitude will find its way eventually. However, Lucy had been too young to understand this truth. And it still doesn't weigh heavily on her heart. The emotional ache she feels is closer to nostalgia than solitude. The old codger was always full of nagging, tossing her aside after falling asleep near the magic forest, threatening her when she acted out. Yet, with his absence, the emptiness feels both strange and astonishing. They're unlikely to meet again. There was a time when the thought made her heart ache, but as time passes, even that pain has dulled. Now, the satisfaction from a pouch of jerky in her pocket outweighs nostalgia. Imagining Gluck's reaction to this, ironically, even brings a smile to her face. What's lost is lost. She knows enough from experience that trying to reclaim it is a waste of energy. Now, she simply enjoys lying back and watching the stars, spending her time contentedly. She doesn't have many responsibilities. The coursework is too easy. Skimming through a book once usually means committing it to memory. Practical exercises are effortlessly completed with a mere flick of the finger. The Gluck Scholarship Foundation covers all her tuition fees. Even the professors don't particularly intervene. She remembers the time when Gluck's wrinkled hands affectionately stroked her head. Over time, the sensation of missing Gluck has become as natural as the initial comfort she felt from him. For Lucy, to lean on someone, to miss someone, is a sensation that settles in quite naturally. Some people, despite being irksome and disagreeable, become conspicuously absent when not around. Realizing what yearning meant, she has no desire to expand her circle of such relationships. For the prodigious young mage, it's a sensation she doesn't want to encounter again, hence her detachment, and before she knew it, she had descended into indolence. In a way, her life is quite amusing. She's well aware that when the time comes and her destiny unfolds, she'll have to rouse herself despite the inconvenience. But, not now. Lucy dangles her legs over the perilous railing on the roof of Tris Hall. Holding down her hat with one hand to prevent it from flying away, she savors a piece of jerky while contemplating the autumn night sky sprawling open to her gaze. It seems for a while, the clear, bright days of autumn would persist. No sign of dreary rain in sight. Pleased with this thought, she finds herself whistling a merry tune, though it's rather uncharacteristic of her. Asterisk. Act 2's final chapter begins. So far, she's had to learn about other events indirectly through Zix, Yenneker, or Lortel. It wasn't that she didn't want to get involved, but she simply didn't have the leeway. Besides, she lacked justification, a raison d'etre, or any reason to engage in what was occurring amongst the freshmen. Just confirming that the story was smoothly headed toward its conclusion sans issues was enough. Yet, the situation changes with the upcoming finale. Now she has a reason and justification. If it was about to be discarded anyway, she most certainly wanted to claim the dark arts equipment recipe for herself. There's no better foundation for explosive growth. With a bit of luck, it might lead to a dramatic surge in strength. Great job, Ed. The camp's food reserves should be enough for the immediate future. Closing square bracket. Still a long way off from getting through winter, though. He mentions casually, the gathering of food supplies didn't take long. Having grown accustomed to hunting and with his specs significantly improved, overpowering wildlife had become easier than expected. But don't overexert yourself. You need to wrap up today's studies soon if you're to get your prescribed 6 hours of sleep. Plus, you're significantly short on meat and vegetables today, Ed. You need to make up for it at dinner and you haven't drunk enough water either. Closing square bracket. Alright, I got it. Quote, Muck, earnestly and meticulously, began to report on his daily tasks. At this point, Muck felt more like a personal secretary than a spirit wrangler, which felt oddly disconcerting. If you collapse again, I'm done for. For my sake, please, maintain a healthy lifestyle. I want to keep our contract for as long as possible. Closing square bracket. After collapsing once, Muck has been constantly by his side. It seemed he'd gotten an earful from Tarkon. Truly, the low man on the totem pole often ends up bearing responsibility in any reality. Feeling sorry for Muck. Is it a bad thing to be too kind, Ed? Why bring this up all of a sudden? Today, I saw friends getting into an argument, and I couldn't bring myself to say anything. Quote, returning to camp after wrapping up the day's academy schedule with Yenneker, it's become second nature for her to join him instead of heading to Dex Hall. Their arrangement was so seamless that even he no longer sees it as something peculiar. Was she actually just sleeping in Dex Hall? Considering Yenneker's discomfort with staying there, it wasn't entirely surprising. After all, he was the one who had initially told her that she could visit the camp anytime. Natural as ever, Yenneker had pulled out her own mug, brewed some herbal tea, and placed it on the makeshift table next to his. Sometimes she'd help with camp maintenance using spirits, roll up her uniform sleeves to do the laundry, and offer to share her elemental magic expertise. When asked for something in return, she would hastily decline, making for a rather perplexing situation, like those earnest head of household types. Best to set aside such wayward thoughts. Claire and Anise fought today. You know, the friends I always hang out with. Quote, yes, I'm aware. Quote, it was nothing serious, we were just chatting on our way from our elemental studies class to magical creature ecology and something minor sparked an argument. Then it escalated. But when they saw my distress, they felt sorry, which made things awkward. Quote, you were genuinely troubled, right? Why yes, but afterwards, I started feeling weird when I realized they were struggling with their consciences because of me. Quote, as she speaks, Yenneker grasps her mug and stares into the campfire with a dejected look. It's always like that. Everyone is so nice, always trying to be considerate, and it's piling up. It's as if they're developing an obsession, even when it's unnecessary. Quote, it's a given that Yenica, known for her kindness, wouldn't deny it, but it's curious that these considerations could frustrate her. Then again, if one thinks about it, her reaction seems fitting. But expressing this makes me sound like a difficult person. I worry they'd ask why I'm troubled by their kindness. Quote, it's a fair point. If someone extends kindness for your sake, you can't really snap at them for it. Quote, ah, Ed, you're so blunt with words. But I can't argue because you're right. Quote, with a hesitant giggle and a fidgety shuffle, Yenica seemed to be undergoing a shift in her perspective. I want to get a little meaner. I've tried similar things before, but this time I mean it. Quote, she then adopts a defiant stance, hands on hips, puffing up as if to shout, see, I can be mean. Honestly, it was hard to grasp the purpose of such a display. By the way, there's something I'd like to ask of you. Quote, okay, what is it? Is it urgent? Just tell me. Quote ellipsis quote, Yenica, suddenly realizing she might have sounded too eager, catches her breath and sets down her mug, pondering how to phrase her request, then hesitantly starts speaking. If I ask a favor, you might or might not be able to help, but can I at least talk to you about it? But I'd feel guilty asking for free, it's a bit complicated and might be dangerous. It seems manageable, but still. Quote, hearing his cautious tone, Yenica's face falls in understanding, so he proceeds with care. There's something I lost, something I want to find, and there's a place I need to go, but it's a bit too dangerous to go alone. Quote, where is it? The sewer system. You know, the large entrance outside the faculty buildings. Quote, is it that dangerous? I haven't been, so I don't know. If you think it's risky, I'll take your word for it. Quote, the beginning of a plan takes shape. Act 2's final battle starts in Tris Hall, moves on to the sewers, then to a hidden laboratory, and finally to the last tower of magic. While protagonist Tylee follows this route, I plan to collect everything I need from the spirit library in the hidden laboratory, replicas of advanced magic tomes, various recipes, and mystic items. As for the lab's strict security and guardians, it's inefficient and potentially disruptive to dismantle them completely, even the feasibility is in question. Rather than enduring such an ordeal myself, the core strategy shifts to following behind. Once Tylee clears the way during the final showdown, I'll discreetly follow, silently collecting what's needed before slipping away. There's no need for the badge of honor, dropped by first phase student President Barris, which greatly enhances resistance to all elemental magic, useful for breaking the scenario, so Tylee can have it. The dark arts items dropped by Associate Professor Claire in the second phase are also unnecessary. Though useful for the moment, they will become cumbersome in the long run. The key lies in the third phase, within the secret laboratory's spirit library. Every replica of advanced magic tomes, every recipe, every mystic item, all must be gathered as thoroughly as possible. It seems Tylee has reached the fifth sword technique, and given his standing in Class B's swordsmanship, his specs are not only sufficient but rather comfortable. The final battle of Act 2, though slightly complex with certain unnecessary bad ending conditions, is mostly straightforward combat, as long as the specs are met. The special circumstances of these bad ending conditions aren't a major concern either, though vigilance and thoroughness are necessary. Having decided to follow, I'll verify that Phase 5 concludes successfully before returning to camp. With that, the plan is complete. However, going out alone could lead to unintended crises, so accompanied by someone strong enough to assist would perfect the plan. Among the few with whom I have favorable relations, capable of fulfilling such a request, there is. It was an expected thing. I was walking nearby and dropped something into the canal. It looks like I'll have to go in there to find it. Quote, that sounds tough, Ed. I'll help you. Thanks, Yenica. The underground canal is incredibly dark and damp, and there are quite a few narrow spaces too. Make sure to wear clothes you don't mind getting dirty. Thank you. I will definitely repay you. Quote, no, not at all, Ed. But, when you say it's dark and narrow. Yenneker was spinning her mug around when suddenly perked up her ears and cleared her throat. She flailed her arms as if shooing away invisible mid-ranking spirits that only she could hear. It can't be helped. Right, all we have to do is stay close so we don't lose our way. Yes, thanks. Quote. Suddenly feeling uneasy after the conversation, Yenneker started nervously pulling at her hair. It seems she has sorted out her thoughts. As I thought, I am too easygoing. Is that so? But, if I don't go, Ed would still go alone, right? You'd run around alone in that darkness trying to find it. I can't deny it. Quote. That's not quite right. You can't carelessly judge why she has such unnecessary worries because after all, it's a constant concern for Yenneker. She's a girl who lived her life like a princess in a fairy tale, returning love with the affection she receives. You can't say that's bad, nor can you criticize her for being disconnected from reality. It's not that Yenneker is inherently bad or lives in her own world apart from reality. In fact, in some ways, Rosa might be more prominent in that aspect. It's just that living happily in a garden full of affection is all there is, and nobody can say that's wrong. However, if Yenneker herself says she wants to step out of that fairy tale and face reality, then she has countless responsibilities to bear. Sometimes she'll have to refuse someone's kindness, and undoubtedly, there will be genuine requests that she'll need to decline. For the inherently kind-hearted Yenneker to achieve such inner growth, a proper catalyst is necessary. Even the kindest people face situations where they have to respond with malice when dragged through muddy reality. For the untouched fairy tale girl to become an adult living in reality, a desperate ingredient called reality is indispensable. But as it doesn't seem like such an urgent matter will arise anytime soon, all I can do is tell her to hang in there. Well, let's go together when the academic schedule frees up a bit. Maybe we'll have some spare time while the academy is busy with other matters, when the reaction to the enchanted seal is about right. Quote. The matter of selling the sage's seal has somewhat become public knowledge. Of course, it's not something to be proud of, so it's just a light rumor circulating internally. Even that rumor was about a pledge rather than a sale, but knowing the reality that it amounts to selling the heart of the school for money is indisputable. Anyway, Yenneker probably knows the general situation, so it should be sufficient to leave it at that. Okay, Ed. I'll be at the entrance to the underground canal then. Oh, I can't believe how late it has gotten. Quote. After finishing the academic schedule and coming back to the camp, I spent time making bricks by the river and wrapping up the firewood work while Yenneker cleaned the cabin and prepared dinner. And before we knew it, the sky had darkened, and 1 or 2 stars began to appear. I need to go quickly because there's a student meeting at Dex Hall tonight. Hope you finish the day well, Ed. Sure, Yenneker. Take care and watch your steps in the dark on your way. Quote. Lately, I've realized that my attitude becomes softer especially when dealing with Yenneker. Anyway, Yenneker has the knack to make people around her soften their stances. Somehow blessed with this nature, it's ironic how she doesn't take pride in it. Waving her hand slowly with a giggle and walking away, I greeted Yenneker and sat by the campfire alone, whittling arrows. Asterisk. Next semester, we expect to increase the number of students in Class A. About 2 more are likely to be promoted. It's been a year since 2 more students were admitted. This grade definitely has many talented ones. Quote. The comprehensive magic class of Class A hosted by Professor Glast. There is no specific subject name, but Professor Glast's special class, which covers a wide range of magic studies, is available only to selected students. Currently, the only first-year students allowed to participate in that class are Zix, Lortel, and Lucy, just the 3 of them. Adele in Class B and Aila in Class C are the likely candidates. Even if they join midway, it shouldn't disrupt the class content, so there's no need to worry unnecessarily. Quote. The special classroom reserved for Class A in the faculty building is spacious. However, despite the large classroom, only 3 people are seated. One boy sits upright, Attentively listening to Professor Glast's words, one girl sizes up the professor's intentions with her alluring eyes and a subdued smile, and one girl sprawls out asleep comfortably. There's no need to specify who is who. Oh my, Adele and Aila. That's unexpected. Weren't they known for their ambiguous or weak magical abilities or combat strength? Lortel dared to object to the senior professor's words, but Professor Glast did not seem offended. He is infinitely indulgent toward those with talent. In a way, his attitude is consistently single-minded. We don't just select based on the amount of magic power or level of magic sensitivity. It's simple. I acknowledge them for Class A if I think they have magical talent in some way. Quote, the Academy completely trusts Professor Glast's selection. That's why such autonomy is guaranteed in class assignments. And true to that trust, Glast's eyes always precisely discern the light of talent. Adele, who constantly plays music or sings, and always wears a relaxed smile, is famously known as a romantic or a minstrel among students. Even Lortel found her mysterious talent to wield magic using musical instruments extraordinary. Aila may have a small amount of magic power and clumsy sensitivity, but her knowledge and academic abilities are almost on par with the professor's. Additionally, there were rumors that she shows an exceptional sensitivity to a certain type of special magic, not ordinary magic. Lortel didn't have much interest, so he didn't know the details. Still, won't there be complaints from other students who want to be promoted to Class A? That's my issue to deal with. Quote, there have always been plenty of students dissatisfied with Glast's class assignments. Well, I apologize, but it seemed there were a few kids with not so bad magical power or sensitivity, if those kids express their complaints. I'm not interested in investing time in such ambiguous talent. Quote, Professor Glast curtly replied to Zix's remark. However, Zix continued with a sullen expression. I hesitate to mention it, but no need to be cautious. Speak your mind. I won't get too upset. Quote, Zix hesitantly yet clearly voiced his concern. It might sound diminishing to label it as ambiguous talent, but those kids are also working extremely hard and want recognition. Also, you never know how their talent might develop further. At 3.5 feet tall, it's not that their skills would be underestimated outside, so it seems uncomfortable that Professor Glast might be looking down on those kids too dismissively. It's like belittling their efforts. Quote, after saying that much, Zix looked at Glast's expression. Lortel sitting 2 seats away let out a deep sigh, not understanding Zix's circumspection. Zix thinks it's rude to question Glast's policy so directly. He still doesn't grasp what kind of person Glast is. Though it would not have been surprising for Glast to get angry, he instead spoke calmly with a subdued tone. Do you think I'm belittling and despising those kids, ruining and ignoring their lives? Zix Effelstein. Quote, quote, silence implies agreement. Sorry to say, I don't think so. On the contrary, the surest way to ruin someone's life is to prematurely instill false confidence in their vague talents and thoughtlessly push them forward. Quote, Lortel did not ignore those words. With some information on the personal affairs of the Academy staff, Lortel could draw a meaning from Glast's statements. He heard that Glast's only daughter, Murray, was a magic department student at Sylvania and had prematurely joined a beastkin subjugation mission, leading to her death. Even a hedgehog cares for its offspring, let alone the expectations Glast had for Murray, who showed interest in magic. And without detailing the outcome of her diving hastily into a beastkin subjugation with that ambiguous talent, the conclusion was all too clear. An obsession with definite talent and admiration for figures who could advance the era. The reason why he's more fervently dedicated than anyone to the emergence of extraordinary individuals who can lead the masses, is probably to prevent such needless sacrifices. While some might see it as noble, to others, it's just tragically misguided. Lortel did not want to sympathize. In a way, it was no different from stubbornness. I understand. Zix quietly lowered his gaze and nodded. Anything more would have been overstepping. And Lortel Cahelm, this is irrelevant to the class discussion. I'll call you separately later. Quote, it must be about the sage's seal reaction ceremony. Lortel is in the position of purchasing the sage's seal, and Professor Glast is presiding over the reaction ceremony as the academy head. Since it's an issue that precedes student and teacher positions, it's not a topic for discussion during class. Magic skills detail. Grade. Skilled mage specialty area. Elemental common magic. Fast casting LV8 mana sensing LV8 fire elemental magic. Ignition LV14 wind elemental magic. Blade of Wind LV13 intermediate magic has become available. Spirit magic. Spirit sensitivity LV12 understanding spirits LV12 spirit manifestation LV1 shared senses LV1 spirit slot. Lesser fire spirit muck sensitivity stage. 2 efficiency of spirit formula. Good unique enchantment skills. Protection from fire temporary immunity to flame surge blast minor explosion magic increased fire magic abilities spirit slot. Empty. It was time to learn intermediate magic. For a magic school student, acquiring intermediate magic is of great significance. Intermediate magic, also known as secondary magic, defines the boundary between a professional magician and a novice. Normally, following the standard curriculum, one would handle their first intermediate magic by the second year or early third year at the latest. With just 2 or 3 intermediate spells, one is considered a professional magician by outside standards. So, the essence of a magician's ability lies in how diversely and powerfully they can utilize this secondary magic. Only about 10% of Sylvania's graduates can reach beyond that realm. Even for the same intermediate magic, the power level and proficiency can significantly differ. For instance, Lortel's Ice Lance surpasses the power of the intermediate spells used by second-year students. When it comes to high-ranking magic, few students can handle it unless they're among the staff. Even among elite fourth-year students known for their skills, only a handful can use high-ranking magic. As for the highest-ranking magic, well, there could only be 1 or 2 people in all of Sylvania capable of wielding it, exceptions like Lucy aside. In any case, I've now reached the point where I can use intermediate magic without any trouble. Considering where I started, my growth is remarkable enough to make the passage of time seem insignificant. By the next elementology class, I should be able to take on my role as a magician. Satisfied, I closed the book in the corner of the classroom. Today's elementology class was in-depth and there was much to take in. Ed student, you're being summoned. After the next lecture, please go to Professor Glast's research room downstairs in the faculty headquarters. Quote, it was just when I was about to leave the classroom with my book. The now familiar elementology teaching assistant informed me. A summoning, you mean? Come to think of it, I didn't respond to Professor Glast's previous summoning due to collapsing from overwork. I had completely forgotten, but if he's calling me again, it must be important. As far as I know, Professor Glast shouldn't have the time to meet anyone right now. With the seal reaction ceremony so close, he must be exceedingly busy. Of course, I'm busy as well. Since I promised to meet Yenica at the canal entrance on the day of the reaction ceremony, there shouldn't be any issues. But I still have to wrap up the camp matters, prepare for the final exams, and there are still some points in the scenario to check, so my time is limited. I don't want to overdo it and harm my body, so I plan to take things slowly, but now things seem to be getting busy again. Please tell them I understand. Quote, with that, I replied to the teaching assistant and organized my book.